Good evening, dear listeners, and a very warm welcome to you all. Wherever you are tuning in from tonight, maybe cozied up in bed, listening from your favorite quiet corner at home, or perhaps relaxing somewhere peaceful with the world fading away outside. I'm so glad you've joined me here. Take a slow, deep breath. Let your shoulders drop. Maybe pull the covers up a bit higher and feel the day gently slip away. Let the story begin. Blackthorn Hall was the perfect stage for tragedy. Elegant, refined, every guest playing their role beneath crystal chandeliers and velvet curtains. Then, renowned banker Sir Reginald Marchmont was found dead in his private study during a weekend gathering of society's elite. A crystal glass stood beside him. The scent of expensive Cuban cigars still lingered in the air. His face wore an expression of terrible surprise. The police saw a poisoning, but Hercule Poirot saw a performance. Someone in this theater of wealth was playing a role, the role of innocent, the role of murderer, and somewhere among the polished smiles, silk gowns, and rehearsed grief, a mask was already beginning to slip. The curtain rises. Chapter 1. The stage is set Blackthorn Hall, stood upon a gentle rise above the countryside like a grand theatre awaiting its audience. The vast country house blended old aristocratic charm with modern Art Deco elegance, its tall windows glowing warmly against the gathering dusk. Hothouse roses lined the entrance, filling the evening air with a sweet fragrance that mingled with the scent of rain drifting across distant fields. From the outside, it appeared peaceful, refined, and untouched by darkness. Inside, servants moved quietly across polished parquet floors beneath glittering crystal. Chandeliers, velvet curtains framed the windows while polished mahogany furniture reflected pools of golden light. The smell of furniture wax mixed with expensive perfume, Cuban cigar smoke, and strong continental coffee. Everything was arranged with perfect care, as though the house itself understood it was about to host an important performance. The master of this elegant stage was Sir Reginald Marchmont, one of Britain's most respected bankers. Wealth had granted him influence, power, and admiration, yet it had also earned him enemies. Behind every smile offered to Sir Reginald lurked private grievances, hidden resentments, and carefully concealed fears. That weekend, he had invited a select gathering of guests to Blackthorn Hall. The cast assembled one by one. Lady Evelyn Marchmont descended the grand staircase shortly before dinner. Her silver silk gown shimmered beneath the chandelier light, and the delicate scent of Chanel perfume followed her through the room. Beautiful and poised, she carried herself with the confidence of a woman accustomed to society's attention. Yet there was a distance in her eyes, a coldness carefully hidden behind graceful smiles. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? Soon afterward came Adrian Vance, Sir Reginald's personal secretary. Young, handsome, and impeccably dressed, he possessed the smooth manners expected of a trusted assistant. He laughed when appropriate, smiled when necessary, and spoke with polished confidence. Too polished, perhaps. The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice that confidence sometimes resembles a mask. Behind it may hide anxiety, ambition, or fear. Clara Pembroke arrived next. She was Sir Reginald's niece, a woman in her late 20s with intelligent eyes and an open expression. Her simple tweed suit contrasted sharply with the luxury surrounding her. Unlike the others, she greeted servants warmly and appeared genuinely pleased to see them. Yet Poirot would later remind himself of a simple truth. Even kindness can be performed. Finally came Sir Malcolm Reed, Sir Reginald's longtime business associate. His booming voice filled every room he entered. He carried himself like a man comfortable with authority and wealth. Yet whenever Sir Reginald's name arose in conversation, something tightened around his mouth. A missed cue, a crack in the performance. As evening settled over Blackthorn Hall, rain began tapping softly against the windows. The drawing-room glowed with fire warmth, while guests gathered around crystal glasses filled with dry champagne. A distant piano played somewhere in the house, its melody drifting through corridors lined with paintings and polished marble. Everything appeared harmonious, but appearances often lie. Dinner was served at 8 o'clock. The long dining table gleamed beneath candlelight, reflected through crystal and silver. Fine wine flowed freely. Crisp linen napkins rested upon every lap. The aroma of roasted pheasant and rich sauces filled the room. Conversation moved easily at first. Then Sir Reginald began speaking. He dominated discussions as he dominated most things in life. He corrected people publicly, dismissed opposing opinions, and reminded others of favors he had granted over the years. Power had become his favorite language. Not everyone enjoyed hearing it. The tension increased when Clara challenged one of his recent business decisions. Several employees had lost their positions. Families had suffered. Clara spoke passionately. Sir Reginald responded coldly. A silence settled across the table. Lady Evelyn focused upon her wineglass. Adrian Vance suddenly became fascinated by his cutlery. Sir Malcolm stared toward the fireplace. No one wished to participate. Ask yourself, why do people remain silent when truth enters the room? Fear often plays a larger role than honesty. The argument ended quickly, but something important had been revealed. Beneath the polished manners and elegant surroundings lay genuine conflict, and genuine conflict leaves traces. After dinner, the guests returned to the drawing-room. Firelight flickered across smooth crystal glasses, while servants served coffee and sweet liqueurs. The scent of sandalwood cologne mingled with cigar smoke. Rain continued striking the windows, and occasional gusts of wind rattled the glass. It was during this gathering that Sir Reginald finally rose from his chair. "I have correspondence to finish," he announced. Simple words, ordinary words, yet they would become his final public statement. No one questioned his departure. No one imagined they were watching his last scene. One by one, the guests retired for the night. Doors closed softly along the upper corridors. Footsteps faded into silence. The grandfather clock in the entrance hall continued marking the passing hours. Tick, tick, tick. Blackthorn Hall slept. Morning arrived cold and gray. The rain had not stopped. At breakfast, guests gradually assembled around the dining table. Coffee steamed from silver pots. Newspapers rustled. Conversation remained subdued, but one chair remained empty, Sir Reginald's chair. At first, nobody worried. Powerful men often expected others to wait. Yet as minutes passed, concern slowly emerged. The butler was eventually sent to fetch him. He returned looking troubled. "The study door is locked, madam." A key was produced. The household gathered. The door opened, and the theatre changed forever. Sir Reginald Marchmont sat behind his desk, dead. A crystal glass rested near his hand. Papers lay scattered across the polished surface. The faint smell of bitter almonds lingered in the room. Lady Evelyn gasped sharply. Clara turned pale. Sir Malcolm whispered an oath. Adrian Vance froze where he stood. The performance had begun. Police would soon arrive. Questions would follow. Alibis would be tested. Masks would be worn. And somewhere among the elegant guests stood a murderer preparing for the role of a lifetime. The stage was set. The players assembled. Let the drama begin. Chapter 2. Enter. The players. Rain continued falling against the tall windows of Blackthorn Hall, as though nature itself wished to isolate the house from the outside world. The atmosphere had changed completely since the discovery of Sir Reginald Marchmont's body. What had once felt like an elegant country retreat now resembled a theater after tragedy had struck its leading actor. Every corridor seemed quieter, every conversation more cautious. The police had completed their initial examination by late afternoon. Poison. That was their conclusion. The substance had apparently been administered through a drink consumed shortly before Sir Reginald's death. To the inspectors, it seemed a straightforward case. To Hercule Poirot, it seemed something else entirely. A performance, and every performance required actors. Poirot stood beside the fireplace in the drawing room, warming his hands before the crackling flames. The scent of burning wood mixed with expensive perfume and fresh coffee. Velvet curtains softened the room, while crystal chandeliers cast gentle light across polished mahogany furniture. "The stage is excellent," he murmured. Inspector Graves looked puzzled. "You keep saying that, Monsieur Poirot." Poirot smiled faintly. "Because, my friend, every person in this house is acting. Some perform innocence, some perform grief, some perform surprise." He adjusted his mustache with precision. "And one performs all three." The formal interviews began shortly afterward. Poirot preferred to think of them as scenes. Each actor would enter, each actor would perform, and eventually one would forget their lines. Lady Evelyn Marchmont was first. She entered the library with measured dignity. Her black silk dress rustled softly as she crossed the carpet. The scent of Chanel perfume accompanied her, subtle yet unmistakable. She appeared composed, perhaps too composed. Poirot gestured politely toward a chair. "You have my sympathies, madame." "Thank you." Her voice remained calm, almost perfectly calm. "The performance." She spoke of her husband with respectful sadness. She described their marriage as stable and affectionate. She expressed shock regarding his death. Everything sounded appropriate. Everything sounded rehearsed. The tell. Not once did she refer to Sir Reginald by his first name. Not once. A small detail, yet important. People speaking of loved ones rarely maintain such distance. The psychology, it is everything. "Did your husband have enemies?" asked Poirot. She hesitated. "Only briefly. Successful men always have enemies." An elegant answer, a careful answer, but not an honest one. "Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theater?" Poirot thanked her and made several notes. Lady Evelyn departed. The next actor entered. Adrian Vance. The young secretary carried himself with polished confidence, though his hands remained tightly clasped together throughout the interview. Fear performing as confidence. An old role. A familiar role. "Tell me about Sir Reginald," Poirot said. Adrian nodded immediately. "He was brilliant. Only brilliant." The secretary blinked, demanding as well. "Demanding? Extremely demanding." The mask slipped. Just for a moment. Resentment flashed across his features before disappearing. "Did you catch it?" Poirot certainly did. The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice that genuine emotion often appears before its owner realizes it has escaped. Adrian explained that he had worked for Sir Reginald for 5 years, a valuable position, a prestigious position. Yet there was something missing from his descriptions. Affection, respect existed, fear existed, admiration perhaps, but affection did not. Interesting, very interesting. The interview ended after 20 minutes. Poirot watched the secretary leave. Then he made another note. The script contained weaknesses. Clara Pembroke entered next. Unlike the previous interviews, this one began without visible tension. She sat comfortably, spoke naturally, answered questions directly. Truth usually required less effort, yet Poirot knew better than to trust appearances. Sometimes the most convincing performances were the simplest. "I argued with my uncle at dinner," she admitted. Inspector Graves immediately looked interested. "A serious argument?" "Yes," she folded her hands. "But I didn't kill him. A reasonable statement, an understandable statement. Yet people often volunteer defenses before accusations have been made. Ask yourself why? Fear? Guilt? Or merely human nature?" Clara described her uncle as intelligent, stubborn, and frequently cruel. Her honesty impressed Poirot. Most suspects preferred gentler language. She did not. "This actor plays honesty," Poirot observed quietly. Inspector Graves frowned. "You think she's acting?" Poirot smiled. "Everyone acts, my friend. The question is not whether. The question is why." When Clara left, Sir Malcolm Reed entered. The businessman filled the room with confidence, or attempted to. His heavy footsteps crossed the floor, while rain continued tapping against the windows outside. The smell of cigar smoke lingered around him. "Terrible business," he declared. "Indeed, we've been friends for 30 years." Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head. "Friends?" Sir Malcolm hesitated. "A missed cue, a dangerous one. Business associates. Another adjustment, another revision. The script was changing. Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles, lies flow smooth. As questioning continued, contradictions emerged. Small contradictions, yet important. Sir Malcolm claimed he retired directly to bed after dinner. Unfortunately, a servant had seen him walking near the study corridor shortly before midnight. The businessman's confidence wavered. Only slightly. But enough. The tension rises. Someone will break character soon. After the interviews concluded, Poirot gathered his notes. The rain had finally stopped. Evening sunlight filtered weakly through the clouds, casting long shadows across the drawing room. The actors had entered. Their roles had become clearer. Lady Evelyn played the grieving widow. Adrian Vance performed loyal service. Clara represented honest concern. Sir Malcolm portrayed devoted friendship. But every role contained flaws. Every performance revealed cracks. And behind every mask waited a secret. Poirot stood before the window and gazed toward the wet gardens. Drops of water sparkled upon rose petals. The world appeared peaceful. The house did not. "You see, but you do not observe the performance," he said quietly. Inspector Graves joined him. "What do you observe?" Poirot smiled. "The widow mourns without intimacy. The secretary admires without affection. The niece speaks truth but fears something. The friend performs loyalty while hiding resentment." He touched his magnificent mustache thoughtfully. "And somewhere among these actors stands a murderer." The inspector sighed. "You already know who it is?" "Mais, non." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "But I know something more valuable." "What?" "The role each one needs to play." Silence settled briefly between them. From somewhere distant came the sound of a door closing softly. The grandfather clock chimed the hour. The theatre continued. The audience watched. And the murderer, believing their performance successful, remained unaware that Hercule Poirot had already begun seeing through the costume. Every actor had taken their mark. But who played truth? Chapter 3. The first act. The following morning arrived beneath a sky of drifting gray clouds. Sunlight occasionally broke through, illuminating the wet gardens of Blackthorn Hall before disappearing once more. The house felt different now. The initial shock had faded, replaced by something far more dangerous: anxiety. Every actor in this drama understood that the investigation was tightening around them. Every actor feared becoming the focus of Poirot's spotlight. The great detective sat alone in the morning room, sipping strong continental coffee. The rich aroma filled the air while distant footsteps echoed along polished corridors. A vase of lilies stood upon a nearby table, their fragrance mingling with furniture wax, and the faint scent of cigar smoke lingering from the previous evening. Inspector Graves entered carrying several documents. The financial records arrived. Poirot accepted them with interest. "Excellent. The bank appears healthy." Poirot smiled faintly. "Appearances, my friend, are often the finest costumes." For nearly an hour, he studied reports and correspondence recovered from Sir Reginald's study. Most contained routine business matters. Then he discovered something unexpected. A letter, half-burned, hidden inside the fireplace. His green eyes narrowed. At last, a crack in the scenery. "The mask slips," he murmured. Inspector Graves leaned forward. "What is it?" Poirot carefully unfolded the damaged paper. Though portions had been destroyed, enough remained readable. The letter referred to missing funds. Large sums, very large sums. Money that should have existed. Money that apparently did not. Someone had attempted to destroy the evidence. Someone within Blackthorn Hall. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theater? The discovery transformed the investigation. Murder motivated by hatred was one possibility. Murder motivated by greed was another. And greed frequently wore more convincing disguises. Poirot requested another interview with Adrian Vance. The secretary arrived looking uneasy. His confidence appeared less polished than before. The role was becoming difficult to maintain. "Please sit." Adrian obeyed. Poirot placed the damaged letter upon the table between them. The effect proved immediate. A flicker, a hesitation, a momentary widening of the eyes. The performance had missed a cue. "You recognize this?" "No. Too quickly. Far too quickly." The answer arrived before thought, before consideration, before honesty. Poirot adjusted his mustache with precision. "Interesting. I truly don't. Perhaps." Silence stretched. The secretary shifted uncomfortably. The mask was cracking. Not breaking, but cracking. Ask yourself, why do guilty people fear paper more than witnesses? Because documents do not forget. Documents do not become confused. Documents do not perform. Finally, Adrian sighed. "I've seen similar correspondence." "Ah, audit concerns, financial questions. And Sir Reginald? He was investigating something." "What?" The secretary looked toward the window, away from Poirot, away from truth. "I don't know. A lie. An obvious lie. The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice how often people look away when speaking falsehoods. Not always, but often enough." The interview ended, yet Poirot had learned something valuable. Adrian feared the letter, and fear itself was evidence. Later that afternoon, Poirot walked through the gardens with Clara Pembroke. The air remained cool after the rain. Roses glistened with droplets while a chill breeze stirred the hedges. Clara seemed troubled, more troubled than before. "The house feels different," she admitted. "Because the play has changed." She smiled despite herself. "You really see everything as theater." Poirot nodded. "Human beings perform constantly. Even you? Especially Poirot." "Oh, that surprised her." He laughed softly. "We all wear masks, mademoiselle. The question is whether we remember what lies beneath them." They continued walking. Birdsong drifted through the gardens. Somewhere distant, a door closed softly inside the house. Then Clara spoke again. "My uncle was afraid." Poirot stopped. "Afraid? During the last week? Of what?" "I don't know." A truthful answer. "And therefore useful. Fear leaves traces, even when its cause remains hidden." As evening approached, Poirot gathered his thoughts beside the drawing-room fire. The first act of the drama was nearing its conclusion. Already several masks showed cracks. Already several performances were weakening. And so his mind turned toward a lesson learned long ago. Human beings adore masks. A wealthy banker performs confidence while fearing ruin. A devoted spouse performs affection while nurturing resentment. A loyal employee performs obedience while dreaming of rebellion. Society rewards performance because performance creates order. Without masks, many relationships would collapse beneath the weight of honesty. Poirot remembered a case from years earlier involving a respected magistrate accused of blackmail. The man possessed impeccable manners and an excellent reputation. Everyone described him as honorable. Everyone trusted him completely. During the investigation, Poirot observed that the magistrate always smiled at precisely the correct moment, always expressed concern at precisely the correct time. His emotions appeared flawless, too flawless. Chapter 4. Rehearsed Lines. The fourth day of the investigation began beneath cold autumn sunlight. The rain had finally passed, leaving Blackthorn Hall surrounded by glistening lawns and sparkling hedges. Yet despite the beauty outside, tension hung heavily within the house. The elegant country estate no longer felt like a home. It felt like a stage, and the actors were growing tired. Poirot noticed it immediately during breakfast. The conversations were shorter. The smiles appeared strained. Even the servants moved more cautiously through the corridors. Performances require energy. Fear consumes it. The scent of strong coffee drifted through the dining room as guests sat around the long table. Silver cutlery reflected morning light. Crisp linen napkins rested untouched beside half-finished meals. No one seemed particularly hungry. Inspector Graves joined Poirot shortly after breakfast. "You were correct," he announced. Poirot raised an eyebrow. A pleasant beginning to the morning. The financial records contained discrepancies. Several large transactions cannot be explained. Poirot nodded slowly. The script was weakening. The banker discovered something. Apparently, and someone needed him silenced. The inspector looked thoughtful. "You believe the motive was financial?" Poirot smiled. "I believe motives are actors themselves," Inspector Graves sighed. "I should have expected an answer like that." The morning interviews began immediately. Poirot intended to test every alibi once more, not because he expected different answers, because he expected different performances. Truth rarely changes. Lies must constantly adapt. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theater? Sir Malcolm Reed entered first. The businessman appeared less confident than before. Dark circles had formed beneath his eyes. His expensive suit remained immaculate, yet the man inside it seemed increasingly uncomfortable. Poirot gestured toward a chair. "Your movements on the night of the murder. I already explained." "Please explain again." The slight irritation in Sir Malcolm's expression appeared instantly. "There, a crack. I retired after dinner." "Directly?" "Yes." Poirot opened a notebook. "A servant observed you near the study corridor." The businessman froze. "Only briefly, but long enough. I remembered something after our last conversation." "Excellent. A new version. A revised script. I was looking for a book. A book, yes." Poirot remained silent. Silence often proved more effective than questions. The businessman shifted uncomfortably. "What kind of book?" Poirot finally asked. "I don't recall." The mask slipped. "Did you catch it?" "A man searching for a specific book remembers the title. A man inventing an excuse does not. The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice that lies frequently collapse beneath ordinary questions." Sir Malcolm left looking considerably less comfortable than when he entered. The performance had suffered. Next came Lady Evelyn. She appeared calm, perhaps too calm. Her black silk dress whispered softly as she crossed the carpet. The scent of expensive perfume followed her into the room. Poirot studied her carefully. The grieving widow continued playing her role. but roles become difficult after repeated performances. Tell me about your marriage, she hesitated, an unusual hesitation. Why? Because marriages contain truths, and murders? Often. Her eyes narrowed slightly. The actress disliked the scene. Interesting. It was a successful marriage. Successful? We understood one another. A curious choice of words. Not loving, not happy, successful. Like a business arrangement. Ask yourself, why does she describe a marriage as though discussing a contract? Poirot leaned forward. Did you love your husband? The question struck like a spotlight. Lady Evelyn's composure faltered. Only for a second. Only for the briefest moment. Yet it happened. And Poirot saw. I respected him. Not the answer requested. Not the answer expected. A different answer entirely. The script was failing. The interview concluded shortly afterward. When she departed, Poirot remained deep in thought. Love performing as loyalty. Resentment performing as devotion. Human beings rarely played simple roles. That afternoon brought another surprise. A servant approached Inspector Graves with important information. The man had remained silent out of fear. Now his conscience had become stronger. He reported seeing Adrian Vance leaving Sir Reginald's study shortly before midnight, alone. The revelation spread through Blackthorn Hall like fire through dry grass. Adrian was summoned immediately. The young secretary entered looking pale, very pale. Fear performing as confidence had become increasingly difficult. The servant is mistaken, he insisted. Perhaps. I wasn't in the study. Then where were you? Adrian swallowed. His rehearsed lines had vanished. For the first time since the investigation began, he appeared genuinely lost. The tension rises. Someone will break character soon. I was walking. Where? The gardens. During heavy rain? Silence. A dangerous silence. The secretary looked trapped. Because he was. Not necessarily by guilt, but certainly by deception. Finally, he lowered his head. All right. Poirot watched closely. The mask was slipping. I went to see Sir Reginald. Why? He intended to dismiss me. The confession filled the room with tension. Inspector Graves leaned forward. Dismiss you? Yes. Adrian's voice trembled. He discovered irregularities in the accounts? Poirot's eyes sharpened. At last, something genuine. I didn't kill him. Perhaps not. I argued with him. The truth emerged piece by piece. Not complete truth, but truth nonetheless. The performance had collapsed, and reality was stepping onto the stage. By evening, Poirot sat alone in the drawing room beside a crackling fire. Wood smoke filled the air. Crystal chandeliers glittered overhead while darkness gathered beyond the windows. One by one, the actors were forgetting their lines. Sir Malcolm's alibi had changed. Lady Evelyn's grief contained little love. Adrian's loyalty concealed resentment. Every performance showed strain. Every role contained flaws. The murderer remained hidden, but not for long. Poirot touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. The theatre grows impatient. Inspector Graves looked puzzled. What does that mean? It means truth wishes to appear. Outside wind stirred the trees. Inside, silence settled across Blackthorn Hall. The audience waited. The actors worried. And somewhere among them, the murderer felt the script unraveling with every passing hour. Rehearsed lines faltered. The script was failing. Chapter 5. The mask slips. The atmosphere within Blackthorn Hall had become almost unbearable. 5 days had passed since Sir Reginald Marchmont's death, and every person under the roof felt the pressure tightening around them. Conversations died when footsteps approached. Meals passed in uneasy silence. Even the servants seemed anxious, moving through corridors as though afraid of disturbing unseen ghosts. The theatre of crime had entered a dangerous phase. Actors could maintain performances for only so long. Eventually, exhaustion won. Eventually, the mask slipped. The morning began with a cold wind rattling the windows of the drawing room. A fire crackled in the marble fireplace, filling the room with welcome warmth. The scent of wood smoke mingled with furniture wax, fresh coffee, and the lingering fragrance of lilies arranged upon a polished table. Poirot sat quietly reviewing his notes. The pattern was becoming clearer. Not complete, but clearer. Inspector Graves entered carrying another document. "We found something in the bank records." Poirot looked up. "Excellent. Several unauthorized transfers." "How much?" The inspector named a figure. Poirot's eyebrows rose. "A substantial amount. Enough to destroy reputations. Enough to motivate murder." The stage lights grew brighter. The actors would soon find it impossible to hide. "Who benefited?" Poirot asked. "We're still tracing that." Poirot nodded slowly. Money left footprints. Eventually, they always led somewhere. "The psychology, it is everything," he murmured. By midday, another interview was arranged with Adrian Vance. This time, however, the secretary looked entirely different. His usual confidence had vanished. His polished performance appeared exhausted. Fear stood exposed beneath the costume. "Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theater?" Adrian entered the library and immediately began pacing. A mistake. People who control situations remain seated. People who feel trapped pace. Poirot observed him quietly. Finally, the secretary stopped. "You think I killed him?" Poirot folded his hands. "Do you think you killed him?" The question startled him. "No." "Then why are you frightened?" Adrian's expression tightened. "Because fear rarely comes alone. It brings secrets with it. I made mistakes." "Financial mistakes?" "Yes, criminal mistakes." The secretary looked away. There, another crack, another missed cue. Finally, he collapsed into a chair. His shoulders sagged. The performance ended. "I altered accounts." Inspector Graves immediately leaned forward. "To steal money?" "No." Adrian shook his head. "To hide losses?" The confession emerged slowly, painfully, yet genuinely. Months earlier, he had made reckless investments using funds he controlled temporarily. The investments failed. Terrified of discovery, he manipulated records to conceal the losses. Then Sir Reginald discovered the deception. The banker intended to expose everything. "My career was finished," Adrian whispered. His voice trembled. "The prison would follow." Poirot studied him carefully. The performance. For days, Adrian had played the loyal secretary, obedient, professional, helpful, the tell. Every mention of financial records produced fear rather than grief. The psychology. Years ago, Poirot investigated a merchant in Brussels accused of fraud. The man spent months pretending confidence while his business collapsed around him. Every morning he smiled. Every afternoon he entertained clients. Every evening he reassured investors. Yet the strain slowly consumed him. Poirot remembered noticing that the merchant constantly checked doorways whenever footsteps approached. Why? Because fear expects discovery. The body understands danger long before the mind accepts it. Eventually, the merchant confessed, not because evidence trapped him, but because maintaining the performance became impossible. Human beings can endure many hardships. Sustained deception is rarely one of them. The truth. Adrian feared exposure desperately, but fear alone did not prove murder. "You argued with Sir Reginald." "Yes." "You visited him that night." "Yes." "You had motive." "Yes." The secretary looked directly at Poirot. "But I left him alive." And for the first time, Poirot believed him. Not because of the words, because of the emotion behind them. Truth sounds different. The afternoon brought an even greater shock. Lady Evelyn requested a private meeting. She arrived looking exhausted. The elegant widow who had maintained perfect composure throughout the investigation seemed suddenly transformed. The mask had weakened, perhaps even shattered. She stood near the window overlooking the gardens. For several moments she said nothing. Then tears appeared. Real tears. Not performed, not rehearsed, real. The mask slips. "Did you catch it?" "Poirot certainly did. I never loved him." The words emerged quietly, painfully. At last, truth. The room remained silent. The fire crackled softly. Rain began tapping against the windows once again. "He wasn't cruel all the time," she continued. "He could be generous, but he controlled everything." Her voice broke. "My money, my friendships, my life." Years of hidden resentment poured into the room. Years spent performing the role of devoted wife. Years spent smiling when expected. Years spent hiding anger behind elegance. The emotional collapse continued, and with every word, Poirot saw something important. Not a murderer, a prisoner. Ask yourself, how many people spend years performing roles they never wanted? Lady Evelyn lowered herself into a chair. Exhaustion replaced composure. The performance was finished. The true woman remained. "I wished to leave him." "Did he know?" "Yes." "How did he respond?" A bitter laugh escaped her lips. "He said I belonged to him." Silence followed. Heavy silence. Painful silence. Then Poirot nodded gently. The psychology became clearer. Not guilt, relief. The widow had not mourned because she had already lost her husband long before his death. An important distinction. A vital distinction. As evening approached, Poirot stood alone in Sir Reginald's study. The room where the drama had begun. The room where the curtain would eventually fall. Outside, darkness settled over Blackthorn Hall. Inside, pieces of the truth slowly assembled themselves. Adrian's mask had fallen. Lady Evelyn's mask had fallen. Both concealed secrets. Both concealed lies. Yet neither concealed murder. The real performer remained upon the stage, still acting, still pretending, still believing the audience remained deceived. But not for much longer. Poirot adjusted his mustache with precision. His eyes moved toward the scattered papers upon the desk, toward the fireplace, toward the chair where Sir Reginald had died. Then he smiled. A small smile, a dangerous smile. The final act was approaching. And somewhere in Blackthorn Hall, a murderer was about to discover that Hercule Poirot had begun seeing through the last remaining mask. The mask fell. The true face emerged. Chapter 6. Behind the curtain. The sixth day dawned cold and misty over Blackthorn Hall. A pale fog drifted across the lawns and wrapped itself around the gardens like a theater curtain waiting to rise. From the upper windows, the estate seemed suspended between reality and illusion, an appropriate setting. The investigation itself had reached a similar state. The performances were weakening, the secrets were emerging, and Hercule Poirot was preparing to step behind the curtain. The breakfast room felt unusually quiet that morning. The aroma of strong coffee filled the air while silver spoons clinked softly against porcelain. Cups. No one lingered over conversation. No one appeared comfortable. The actors understood that the drama was approaching its climax. Fear had entered the cast, and fear never performs gracefully. Poirot spent the morning examining correspondence recovered from Sir Reginald's private safe. The discovery had come unexpectedly during a thorough search of the study. Letters, dozens of them, some business-related, some personal, all revealing. Inspector Graves stood beside him as they reviewed the collection. "Remarkable!" the inspector muttered. "Mais oui." Poirot nodded. The backstage area of our theater, the letters exposed relationships that differed greatly from public appearances. Business partners who pretended friendships secretly despised one another. Family members who appeared loyal privately exchanged bitter accusations. Masks everywhere, roles everywhere, truth hidden behind carefully arranged scenery. One letter proved particularly interesting. It had been written by Sir Malcolm Reed. The contents were alarming. The businessman owed enormous sums of money, far more than anyone realized. His public image suggested prosperity. The reality suggested disaster. Poirot adjusted his mustache thoughtfully. Poverty masking wealth. Inspector Graves frowned. The opposite. Ah, but psychologically it is the same. The inspector sighed. He had learned that arguing with Poirot rarely succeeded. By afternoon, Sir Malcolm was summoned. The businessman entered the library looking tense. His confidence appeared almost completely exhausted. The role no longer fit comfortably. Poirot placed the letter upon the table. Recognition flashed immediately across Sir Malcolm's face. The mask slipped. "Did you see it? Your debts!" The businessman remained silent. Substantial debts. Still silence. Finally, Sir Malcolm lowered himself into a chair. The performance had become impossible. I was ruined. At last. Truth. The confession emerged slowly. Several investments had collapsed during the previous year. To preserve his reputation, Sir Malcolm borrowed heavily, then borrowed again and again. Each loan created another mask. Each mask required another lie. The theater expanded until reality disappeared behind it. Sir Reginald knew? Yes, and... The businessman laughed bitterly. He intended to remove me from the company. A dangerous motive, a powerful motive. Yet motive alone did not create guilt. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theater? Poirot studied the man carefully. Fear existed. Shame existed. Desperation existed. But murder? Not yet. Not visibly. Not psychologically. After the interview concluded, Poirot walked alone through the gardens. The mist had begun lifting beneath weak sunlight. Roses nodded gently in the breeze while droplets of water sparkled upon their petals. Somewhere nearby, birds sang cautiously. Nature rarely wore masks. Human beings rarely removed them. The current case offered a perfect example. Every suspect had constructed an identity designed for public viewing. Lady Evelyn performed devotion while feeling resentment. Adrian performed confidence while hiding panic. Sir Malcolm performed success while concealing ruin. Why? Because society rewards performance. People fear rejection, fear judgment, fear exposure, and so they build masks. Sometimes those masks become so familiar that they forget where performance ends and reality begins. Poirot remembered another investigation many years earlier. A celebrated actress had become the prime suspect in a poisoning case. Her public image radiated kindness, charm, and innocence. Audiences adored her. Critics praised her. Even investigators initially trusted her completely. Yet Poirot noticed something unusual. Whenever she spoke privately, her emotions appeared genuine. Whenever others watched, they became theatrical. She had spent so many years performing that she no longer recognized the difference between truth and role. Eventually, it emerged that she had hidden crucial evidence. Not because she was guilty, but because performance had become instinctive. She feared being seen as flawed more than she feared suspicion itself. That case taught Poirot an important lesson. Human beings do not merely lie to others. Often they lie to themselves. The psychology, it is everything. A mask worn long enough begins to feel like skin. Yet truth remains patient. Truth waits. Eventually the curtain opens. Eventually reality steps forward. And every actor must face the audience. As evening approached, another revelation arrived. A bank auditor appeared unexpectedly at Blackthorn Hall. His information changed everything. The missing funds had not benefited Adrian Vance, nor Sir Malcolm. The money had moved elsewhere, to a series of hidden accounts connected indirectly to someone much closer to Sir Reginald, someone unexpected. Inspector Graves stared at the documents. My God! Poirot remained calm, because the final pieces were falling into place. The backstage machinery had become visible. The hidden connections emerged. Relationships that seemed unrelated now formed a pattern, a design, a script. And at the center of that script stood one actor whose performance remained largely intact. For now, the tension rises. Someone will break character soon. Night settled across Blackthorn Hall. The chandeliers glowed warmly above polished floors. Firelight flickered against marble walls. The scent of wood smoke and furniture wax filled the corridors. Yet beneath the elegance lurked something else. Expectation. The audience sensed the final act approaching. The actors sensed it too. Poirot stood before the study window, gazing into the darkness beyond the glass. He no longer wondered whether the murderer would be revealed, only when. The curtain was already moving. The stage lights were brightening, and somewhere inside Blackthorn Hall, the true performer was running out of places to hide. Behind every curtain, a secret. Every secret, a motive. Chapter 7. The final act. The seventh evening at Blackthorn Hall arrived with a sense of inevitability. The sky beyond the tall windows had darkened to deep blue. Rain clouds drifted across the countryside while wind whispered through the gardens. Inside, crystal chandeliers cast warm light upon polished mahogany furniture and velvet curtains. The stage was ready. The audience was waiting, and Hercule Poirot had summoned every member of the cast. One by one, they entered the drawing room. Lady Evelyn Marchmont sat beside the fireplace, her expression tense. Adrian Vance occupied a chair near the window, his hands clasped tightly together. Clara Pembroke sat quietly nearby, watching everything with anxious eyes. Sir Malcolm Reed stood near the drinks cabinet, attempting to appear calm. Attempting. Poirot knew the difference. Inspector Graves remained beside the door. No one spoke. The tension itself seemed alive. At last Poirot stepped forward. He smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve. Then he smiled. Mesdames et messieurs. The room became perfectly still. You have each performed for Hercule Poirot. His gaze moved slowly across the assembled faces. Some truthfully. A pause. Some less truthfully. The theater had reached its final act. Watch carefully, mon ami. The curtain was about to rise upon the truth. Poirot folded his hands behind his back. Let us review the performances. His eyes settled upon Lady Evelyn. Madame, you played the grieving widow. Lady Evelyn lowered her gaze. The grief, however, was incomplete. You did not love your husband. The words hung heavily in the room. But neither did you kill him. A visible release crossed her face. The performance concealed unhappiness, not murder. Poirot turned toward Adrian Vance. Monsieur Vance, your role was loyal secretary. Adrian swallowed. You altered financial records. You concealed losses. You feared exposure. The young man nodded slowly. Yet fear does not always become violence. Poirot's voice remained calm. You argued with Sir Reginald. You visited him that night. A pause. But you left him alive. Relief flooded Adrian's features. Another actor released from the spotlight. Poirot moved on. Monsieur Reed. Sir Malcolm stiffened. You performed the devoted friend. The businessman looked uncomfortable. A magnificent performance. A slight smile touched Poirot's lips. Unfortunately, friendship does not usually involve hiding enormous debts. The businessman looked away. You feared financial ruin. Yes, you feared disgrace. Yes, you feared Sir Reginald. Another reluctant nod. Poirot spread his hands. But fear is not murder. The tension inside the room shifted. 3 actors examined. 3 performances explained, 3 suspects cleared, and now only 1 remained. The careful observer. And you are becoming careful, mon ami. Will notice that Clara Pembroke has not yet been discussed. Poirot turned slowly toward her. The room seemed to tighten around the moment. Clara sat perfectly still. Too still. The spotlight found its target. Mademoiselle Pembroke. She looked up. The role she had played throughout the investigation was simple. The caring niece. The honest relative. The compassionate victim of family conflict. A convincing performance. Perhaps the most convincing of all. Poirot touched his magnificent mustache thoughtfully. The performance. His voice carried clearly through the silent room. You presented yourself as the one person motivated by conscience rather than self-interest. You challenged your uncle publicly regarding his treatment of employees. You appeared sincere. Clara's face remained expressionless. The tell. Poirot's eyes narrowed. The burned letter. Nobody moved. The letter concerning missing funds. He pointed toward her gently. Only one person knew enough about the investigation to destroy it before police arrived. Clara's composure weakened slightly. A tiny crack, yet enough. The psychology. Poirot stepped forward. I am reminded of a case many years ago involving a young man accused of theft. Everyone believed him incapable of dishonesty because he appeared generous and kind. His reputation became his disguise. He understood something important, that people rarely suspect those who fit the role of innocence. He cultivated that role carefully, protected it, used it. Eventually the truth emerged. The theft itself was almost secondary. The true crime was manipulating trust. The room remained silent. Only the fire crackled softly. Poirot continued. Mademoiselle Pembroke understood the same principle. Inspector Graves stared. Lady Evelyn looked shocked. Sir Malcolm blinked repeatedly. Adrian appeared unable to breathe. Poirot's gaze never left Clara. You managed the hidden accounts. No response. You transferred the missing funds. Still silence. You believed your uncle would never suspect you. Then Clara laughed softly. The sound chilled the room. Because it was not the laugh they expected. The mask had slipped. Did you catch it? Poirot certainly did. The warm, caring niece vanished. Someone else appeared. Someone colder, smarter, more dangerous. Go on, Clara said quietly. Poirot nodded. Sir Reginald discovered the truth. The firelight danced across her face. He confronted you on the night of his death. Yes. The single word shocked everyone. Lady Evelyn gasped. Inspector Graves stepped forward. But Poirot raised a hand. The confession has begun. Clara's expression remained calm, almost relieved. He threatened to destroy me. You poisoned his drink. Yes. The room froze. No one moved. No one spoke. Years of performance collapsed within seconds. The caring niece, the innocent observer, the honest voice, all costumes, all theater. Ask yourself, if you were hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence? Clara had found the answer. Brilliantly, until now. Tears filled her eyes. For the first time, genuine emotion emerged. I spent my whole life trying to earn his approval. Her voice trembled. He controlled everything. The anger surfaced, the hurt, the bitterness, the truth. And when he finally discovered what I'd done, he wanted to ruin me. Poirot nodded gently. Therefore you ruined him first. Clara closed her eyes. Yes. Silence followed, heavy silence. The performance was over, the mask removed, the truth exposed beneath it. Inspector Graves stepped forward and placed a hand upon her shoulder. She offered no resistance. Why would she? There was no role left to play. Poirot looked around the room. The cast remained assembled. The mystery solved. The theater complete. The curtain falls, he said softly. No actor remembers every line forever. Outside, thunder rolled across distant hills. Inside, Only truth remained. The final act concluded. Only truth survived the curtain call. Chapter 8. Curtain Call. The morning after Clara Pembroke's confession arrived quietly. For the first time since Sir Reginald Marchmont's death, Blackthorn Hall felt strangely peaceful. The tension that had haunted every corridor seemed to have lifted during the night. Outside, autumn sunlight illuminated the gardens, turning rain-soaked roses into sparkling jewels. The performance had ended. The audience had learned the truth. Now came the curtain call. Yet, unlike the theater, there would be no applause, only consequences. Poirot stood near a tall window in the drawing room, sipping strong coffee from delicate porcelain. The rich aroma mingled with furniture wax, fresh flowers, and the faint scent of wood smoke from the previous night's fire. Beyond the glass, servants moved quietly through the grounds as though restoring order after a storm. Inspector Graves joined him. She slept very little. Understandable, the inspector nodded. She confessed again this morning. Poirot showed no surprise. Confession often becomes easier after the first truth escapes. The mask has already fallen. There is little reason to replace it. In a room upstairs, Clara Pembroke sat alone under police supervision. The transformation was remarkable. For days she had appeared warm, compassionate, and sincere. Now the performance was gone, only exhaustion remained. The burden of deception had finally become too heavy. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theater? For the first time since the investigation began, it was neither. It was reality. Lady Evelyn requested a private conversation with Poirot shortly after breakfast. She entered the drawing room dressed simply in black. Without the constant effort of maintaining social appearances, she seemed years younger, and strangely freer. She fooled us all. Poirot nodded. Indeed, I loved her. The words emerged softly, painfully, as a daughter. Poirot remained silent. Some grief requires witnesses rather than answers. Lady Evelyn moved toward the window and looked out across the gardens. The strange thing is that I understand her. Ah, not forgiveness. Understanding, a very different thing. Sir Reginald controlled everyone. Her fingers tightened slightly around the windowsill. He controlled me. She paused. He controlled Clara, too. The room fell silent. The scent of lilies drifted through the air. Far away a door closed softly. No one escaped entirely unchanged from the tragedy, not even the innocent. Ask yourself, how many lives are shaped by people who demand control? Human beings often carry invisible scars. Some heal. Some become motives. Later that morning, Adrian Vance prepared to leave Blackthorn Hall. His future remained uncertain. The financial deception he had admitted would undoubtedly damage his career. Yet he remained a free man, and that mattered. He found Poirot standing in the entrance hall. I suppose I should thank you. Poirot smiled. For proving you innocent? For seeing the difference? The difference between fear and murder? Poirot adjusted his mustache with precision. Many people confuse them. Adrian nodded thoughtfully. The young secretary appeared older now. Not physically, psychologically. The experience had stripped away several illusions. Perhaps that was a form of justice as well. As afternoon approached, Sir Malcolm Reed joined Poirot in the library. Sunlight reflected across polished mahogany shelves while the scent of leather-bound books filled the room. The businessman looked humbled. A rare sight. My debts will become public. Poirot nodded. Almost certainly. Sir Malcolm laughed quietly, a tired laugh. Oddly enough, I feel relieved. The detective's eyes brightened. Because the performance is finished. Exactly. For years, Sir Malcolm had hidden behind the role of successful businessman. Now the role had ended. The truth, however unpleasant, required less effort. The careful observer And you are becoming careful, mon ami. Will notice that honesty often arrives carrying relief. The burden of performance can become surprisingly heavy. That evening, Blackthorn Hall gathered one final time in the drawing room. The remaining guests sat together before a crackling fire. Crystal glasses rested untouched upon nearby tables. The warmth of the flames softened the atmosphere, while darkness settled beyond the windows. No one discussed the murder directly. There seemed little need. The truth now existed openly. The spotlight had moved elsewhere. Instead, conversation turned toward the future, toward rebuilding, toward moving forward. The stage itself appeared transformed. Only days earlier, the room had felt like a theater of suspicion. Every glance carried hidden meaning. Every word concealed possibility. Now it was merely a drawing room again. Comfortable, elegant, peaceful. One of the greatest transformations in the entire drama. The setting had changed alongside the actors. Poirot sat quietly, listening more than speaking. The mystery had ended. His work was complete. Yet he understood something important. Justice never truly restores the past. It merely prevents further damage. The dead remain dead. The wounded remain wounded. But truth allows healing to begin. The spotlight of truth is about to shine. On whom will it fall? The answer, Poirot reflected, was everyone. Not only murderers, not only suspects. Truth illuminates all who stand upon the stage. Before retiring for the evening, Lady Evelyn approached him one final time. "Will you remember this case?" Poirot smiled gently. "Of course." "Why?" He considered the question, then answered, "Because every theater of crime teaches something about human nature." She nodded slowly. Perhaps she understood, perhaps not. Outside, the wind stirred the trees surrounding Blackthorn Hall. Inside, the fire burned steadily. The house no longer felt haunted by secrets. The performance had concluded. The masks were gone. The actors had become themselves once more. And for the first time since Sir Reginald Marchmont died, silence felt comforting rather than threatening. No applause for this performance. Only justice. Chapter 9. After the show, 3 weeks after the events at Blackthorn Hall, autumn had settled fully across the English countryside. The leaves had turned gold and copper. Morning mist drifted across fields before surrendering to pale sunlight. The great country house, once the stage of tragedy, stood quietly beneath clear skies. The theater was empty. The audience had departed. Yet the lessons of the performance lingered. Hercule Poirot returned to Blackthorn Hall one final time before leaving the district. Certain legal matters required clarification, and several members of the household wished to thank him personally. But Poirot understood that gratitude was not the real reason. People seek explanations, even after the mystery ends, especially after the mystery ends. The house itself had changed. The corridors no longer carried an atmosphere of suspicion. The drawing room once again smelled of fresh flowers, polished wood, and strong coffee, rather than tension and fear. Sunlight filled rooms that had seemed permanently shadowed during the investigation. The setting had completed its transformation, from elegant home to theater of crime, and back again. Lady Evelyn greeted him in the entrance hall. She looked different, not happier exactly, but lighter. The strain that had accompanied her throughout her marriage appeared diminished. She wore a simple navy dress rather than the elaborate fashions she once preferred. The scent of perfume remained, but subtler now. Less costume, more person. Watch this transformation carefully. Is it truth or theater? Poirot believed it was truth. For the first time, "I've decided to sell the London townhouse," she told him as they walked through the gardens. "A significant decision, perhaps." She smiled faintly. "Or perhaps the first decision I've made entirely for myself." The detective nodded. That was the thing about masks. Sometimes people wore them so long that freedom itself felt unfamiliar. Lady Evelyn stopped beside a bed of autumn roses. I keep wondering whether I should have noticed. Noticed what? Clara. Poirot studied the flowers. Their petals were fading with the season, yet they remained beautiful. You saw the role she played, yes, but not the role she hid. Lady Evelyn sighed. No, most people did not. The widow remained silent for several moments. Then she nodded. Understanding at last. Not everyone who is deceived is foolish. Sometimes the performance is simply excellent. Later that afternoon, Poirot visited Adrian Vance. The former secretary had accepted a modest position with a small accounting firm in the nearby town. The office lacked prestige. It lacked glamour, but it offered honesty, and that was something. Adrian welcomed him warmly. The atmosphere felt entirely different from their previous meetings. Gone was the nervous confidence. Gone was the carefully managed image. The young man appeared genuine, perhaps for the first time. I suppose losing everything wasn't actually losing everything. Poirot smiled. A useful discovery. Adrian laughed. When you put it that way. The office smelled of paper, ink, and fresh coffee. Sunlight streamed through narrow windows onto neat rows of ledgers. Order, simplicity, reality. The careful observer. And you are becoming careful, mon ami. Will notice that truth often creates peace where deception created exhaustion. Adrian had lost status, but he had recovered himself. That was not a poor exchange. Sir Malcolm Reed experienced a similar transformation. His financial troubles became public exactly as expected. Newspapers reported his failed investments. Business associates withdrew support. Society gossiped enthusiastically. Yet something surprising occurred. He survived. The disaster he had feared for years finally arrived, and life continued. Poirot met him at a quiet club in London. The businessman appeared older, yet calmer. The scent of cigar smoke drifted through the room while rain tapped softly against the windows. I spent years hiding. Sir Malcolm stared into his coffee. Years. And now? The businessman smiled. Now I have nothing left to hide. There it was again. Relief. An unexpected reward of honesty. Fear performing as confidence had finally retired from the stage. As for Clara Pembroke, her story followed a darker path. She remained in custody awaiting trial. The newspapers called her many things. Monster, fraud, murderer. Yet Poirot resisted such simple descriptions. Human beings rarely fit neatly into categories. She had committed murder. That truth remained undeniable. But she had also spent years trapped beneath expectations, disappointments, and emotional wounds. Understanding was not forgiveness, but understanding mattered. Ask yourself, when does resentment become destruction? The answer is rarely sudden. Such transformations occur gradually. One disappointment, one humiliation, one bitterness at a time, until eventually the mask becomes the person wearing it. One evening before departing England, Poirot returned to Blackthorn Hall for a final visit. The sun was setting. Golden light filled the drawing room where the mystery had ultimately been solved. The room felt smaller now, less dramatic, less threatening, because the audience understood the trick. The performance no longer possessed power. Poirot stood beside the fireplace and reflected upon the actors who had occupied the stage. Lady Evelyn, Adrian Vance, Sir Malcolm Reed, Clara Pembroke. Each had entered wearing a mask. Each had revealed something hidden. Each had been transformed by the experience. And what of the audience? You as well, mon ami. You arrived expecting clues. You leave understanding people. That is the greater mystery. The psychology beneath the performance. The truth beneath the role. The face beneath the mask. Outside, darkness settled across the countryside. Inside, the final embers glowed softly in the fireplace. The theater was empty. The curtain had fallen. Yet the lessons remained. The theater emptied. The lessons remained. Chapter 10. Poirot reviews the performance. Several months after the tragedy at Blackthorn Hall, Hercule Poirot sat comfortably in his London apartment as winter rain drifted against the windows. A small fire burned steadily in the grate, filling the room with warmth and the scent of wood smoke. Beside him rested a cup of herbal tisane, while polished furniture reflected the soft glow of lamplight. The case was finished. Justice had been served. The actors had left the stage. Yet Poirot often found that the most important part of an investigation began after the curtain fell. Reflection. The psychology, it is everything. He arranged several objects on a nearby table, symmetrically, a habit that always pleased him. Outside, distant traffic murmured through the rainy evening. Inside, there was only quiet and memory. News had reached him regarding the surviving members of the drama. Lady Evelyn Marchmont had sold Blackthorn Hall and begun a new life abroad. Those who knew her reported that she seemed happier than she had been in many years. Sir Malcolm Reed had accepted the loss of his fortune and rebuilt a modest business. Adrian Vance continued working honestly, his earlier mistakes now serving as lessons rather than chains. And Clara Pembroke? She had been convicted. The law had reached its conclusion. The final judgment had been delivered. The audience might believe the story ended there. But Poirot knew better, because murder mysteries are rarely about murder alone. They are about people, and people are infinitely more complicated. He leaned back in his chair and considered the theater that had unfolded at Blackthorn Hall. Every person involved had worn a mask. Not merely the murderer, everyone. Lady Evelyn wore the mask of the devoted wife. Society expected it. Her marriage required it. Yet beneath that role lived years of loneliness and resentment. She had performed affection long after affection disappeared. Sir Malcolm performed success while privately drowning in debt. Every smile concealed anxiety. Every business conversation concealed fear. His role became so familiar that even he struggled to distinguish performance from reality. Adrian Vance performed confidence while carrying panic within him. He smiled because fear demanded it. He projected certainty because uncertainty terrified him. And Clara, she performed innocence, the most dangerous role of all. Why do human beings perform rather than reveal themselves? The answer is older than civilization itself, because truth is vulnerable. A person who reveals genuine feelings risks rejection. A person who admits weakness risks judgment. A person who exposes failure risks humiliation. Masks provide protection, at least temporarily. Society itself encourages the practice. The businessman must appear successful. The spouse must appear happy. The professional must appear competent. The grieving person must appear heartbroken. Again and again, human beings learn which performances earn approval, and so they perform. Sometimes for years, sometimes for entire lifetimes. Poirot remembered another case many years earlier, involving a respected judge. The man possessed an impeccable reputation and impeccable manners. Everyone admired him. Everyone trusted him. During the investigation, Poirot observed that the judge never expressed spontaneous emotion. Every reaction seemed carefully measured. One evening, however, the judge received unexpected news. Only a minor inconvenience. Yet for a single moment irritation flashed across his face before the mask returned. A tiny moment, almost invisible, but genuine. The entire case changed because of it. Why? Because truth often appears unexpectedly. Performance prepares itself. Truth simply arrives. That lesson proved equally important at Blackthorn Hall. Clara maintained her role brilliantly, for a time. She appeared compassionate, thoughtful, honest, yet maintaining a performance requires constant effort. Eventually, effort creates strain. Strain creates mistakes. Mistakes create revelation. This is why guilt remains such a poor actor. Many criminals imagine that success depends upon cleverness. They focus upon evidence, alibis, opportunities, practical details. Important matters, certainly. Yet they overlook something far more dangerous: themselves. The human mind is not designed to carry deception indefinitely. Guilt leaks through behavior. Fear alters habits. Anxiety affects speech. The body remembers what the mouth attempts to forget. That is why Poirot studies psychology before evidence. Evidence explains what happened. Psychology explains why, and why is always more interesting. He lifted his cup and sipped thoughtfully. The warm tisane carried hints of herbs and honey. Comforting, orderly, very unlike murder. Yet even murder follows patterns. The listener who followed the events at Blackthorn Hall may wonder whether truth always triumphs. A reasonable question. Not every mystery receives a perfect ending. Not every victim receives justice. Not every guilty person faces consequences. Reality can be disappointingly untidy, yet truth possesses one remarkable advantage: patience. A lie requires maintenance. Truth requires only existence. A performance must be repeated. Truth simply waits, again and again. Poirot has watched carefully constructed deceptions collapse beneath their own weight. Not because detectives are brilliant, not because criminals are foolish, because maintaining falsehood forever is impossible. The mask eventually slips. The actor eventually forgets the lines. The curtain eventually rises, and when it does, truth stands waiting in the spotlight. He smiled softly. The little gray cells had served him well once again. More importantly, they had revealed something worth remembering. Blackthorn Hall was never truly a story about money, nor poison, nor even murder. It was a story about identity, about the roles people choose, the roles they inherit, the roles they fear losing, and the consequences of confusing performance with self. Outside, the rain continued falling against the windows. Inside, the fire burned warmly. Poirot rose from his chair and gazed into the darkness beyond the glass. Somewhere, another mystery waited. Another stage, another cast, another collection of masks. Human nature never changed very much. Only the scenery changed. And Hercule Poirot, director of so many strange dramas, remained ready for the next performance. Until the next theater of crime, mes amis. Poirot watches always.